Hi, I'm Matthew Graham, Indiana Poet Laureate, presently quarantined in Evansville. I'm joined today by Jacy Thomas and DeAnthony Carter, both students at Purdue Polytechnic High School in Indianapolis, and participants in the Poetry Out Loud program, organized by the Indiana Arts Commission. Today, Jacy, DeAnthony, and I are going to talk about poetry. So thank you guys for being here. How are you doing?
Thank you for having us. I'm doing well. How about yourself, Jacy?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Dee. Yeah, thank you for having us. We're so excited.
Well, yeah. Well. Tell us a little bit about yourselves. You want to start, Jacy?
Yeah. So I'm Jacy. I'm a junior at Purdue Polytechnic High School, as you heard. I'm president of National Honor Society, and one of my favorite things to do is binge watch Disney Plus and just volunteer. DeAnthony.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. My name is DeAnthony Carter. I also go to Purdue Polytechnic High School. I'm a junior, and I love poetry, writing, and music.
All right. Well, thank you.
He's good at all of them.
Well, Jacy wanted me to read one of my poems in particular, called "In a Time of Trains," and so I thought I'd do that and then see what kind of question you guys might have about it. In a time of trains. I will wait for you here in an overcoat and a blue tiled bar beneath a glass clock, lit like the vacancy sign of an old hotel, listening in the long hours for afternoon to turn and knock. From here I will wave and watch a flock of pigeons, disturbed by a small, serious dog, cloud the street, the dog happy to do a dog's job well. And from across the platform I will hear the arrival of trains and their fleeting so-longs rise above the sweet talk of cigarettes and cocktails. And I will still wait for you when rain begins to blur the glass and brings the smells of newspapers and umbrellas. Don't, love, ever say that anything will change while I wait for you here in a time of trains. So earlier, Jacy, you said that the poem reminded you of an old movie, and I'm glad you said that, because that was sort of my intention. One of those kind of dark, romantic, black and white movies from the 40s or 50s, and that was kind of the environment I was trying to create. I also wanted to write a love poem, a romantic poem. They're hard to write. They're very hard to write, as you both know, without sounding totally corny. But they seem to me to be the poems we want to write initially. You know, that's a strong emotion, and so the story behind it is actually a great romantic story. I was in Paris with my wife, and I was waiting at a train station to meet her, and she is notoriously late, always late. And I'm sitting there at the bar at the train station, getting more and more angry because she's so late. And then it finally dawned on me, what am I? I'm in Paris at a train station. I mean, this is incredibly romantic. So what if she's late, you know? And that was kind of the story behind the poem that came out of it. But I think you're right. It was kind of like an old movie that I was trying to recreate. But do you guys have any questions for me?
Oh, so good. I love that poem.
That was beautiful, yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
So, when you're writing, do you usually how do you? Because like you said, you use personal experiences, but with all other your poems, do you use it based on personal experiences or just a mood or something like that?
Wow. Well, I think that, I've been doing this a long time. I think my poetry and most poetry is pretty autobiographical. I think that's where we start from. I think a reader expects when they're reading a poem, they're really reading about the poet's life and not something they made up. But I think many times a poem comes to me just from a phrase or image or a couple words, and it all comes down to language and just loving the language and being knocked out by it and building it from there. The other poem I think you guys saw was not Halloween, October Years. Did you get that one?
Yeah.
And that poem I realized I started at the end of the poem. I had the image of children come into the door, you know, dressed up, and I twisted it so that, you know, they're demons dressed as children. And then I worked backwards to write the poem about my dad and my dad's passing and all that, what that meant. But that's a good question. What about you guys though? I mean, tell me what you love about writing and reciting poetry.
I don't know. I just love, you know, the imagery. Like if you look back at all of my poems, I just love writing things that reflect an image.
Right.
Previously, I've had a piece published by Write the World, and it was a piece just talking about a sunset.
Yeah, right.
And, you know, the original prompt was to just write about a color.
Right.
But a sunset could really be any color depending on where you are in the world. It could be orange, red, yellow, like whatever color.
Right. Well, that's where it starts. You know, I with my beginning writing classes, one of the first assignments was just to describe a place, you know, make something come alive with words. Describe something, you know. Often we get lost in the fact that poetry has to be about big ideas and big emotions, when really it has to start out with an image, you know, something you can see. How about you?
Me, I mean, yeah, I really agree with that. Where you just start with you start with something small and just something so simple, and you just make it your own. That's probably one of my favorite things. It's just when I read anything like Cage Bird, My Angel, I'm sure you just those little things where it's just how you can just use one an animal or just something like that, and you can just bring it so much more life or detail or just eat and just things like that. That's what I really like to do when I'm writing, or just making analogies, or just trying to really challenge myself and how do other people see this? How do you view it? What do you think about it, you know?
Yeah, right. Well, so what do you think you're going to be doing? Any plans for where you're going to go to college and what you think you're going to study?
Oh, me? So I want to be a pediatric nurse practitioner with a dual concentration, in acute care and primary care. So I'm gonna start out at nursing, but I wanna stay local, so IUPUI for the nursing program, because Riley is just right there. And you have a really good cohort program, and I just think that's a really good place to network. And I just really love the idea of working with the hospital that's helped me so much in my health and my journey. So yeah.
That's very admirable of you. But what's cool about that is no matter what you end up doing for a career, you can always still write, you know?
Yeah.
And I think being in the health professions will certainly give you a lot of material to write about.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
How about you, DeAnthony?
I was thinking about majoring in English with a focus on creative writing, and then minoring in music.
Music, yeah. Well, the two go hand in hand, don't they?
Yeah.
You really have to hear the music that's inherent in our language in order to be able to write well, I think. Yeah, I think it's, I mean, I was an English major, obviously. I think it's a good choice, but be sure and study all kinds of stuff. You know, as a writer, you need to know a little bit about everything in the literature certainly is important in writing, but also, you know, philosophy and science and art history and all that stuff, and music, obviously. Well, do you guys have any other questions for me about poetry in general, or the poems of mine that you've seen?
I have a question about writing, because I think a lot of times when we start writing, we get to a place where we stop because we don't know what to say, or we don't know how to word it. So how do you overcome writer's block?
Well, I get it all the time because I'm a very slow writer, and so many times I'm writing something and I'm just so tired of that voice, that person. I'm like, oh, that guy again. Do you ever feel that way? So I put it away, you know, and I don't really have a good regimentation or anything, but I read. That's what I do. I read everything, and that sometimes clears up the writer's block. I mean, we're standing on the shoulders of great people throughout the centuries, but we also steal. Writers steal, I'm sorry. And I think sometimes, reading will help you get out of a writer's block. That's just what I try to do. Or just put it away sometimes, come back to it later. Anything else?
Excellent question. Like, what's your goal? Like, when you're writing, like, what's your goal that you want to achieve with your audience?
Oh, fame and money, and that's love. I want to be loved. I don't know. I want someone to read something I've written and get something out of it. I'd like to. I think poets put into words those feelings and emotions that we all have, but we don't really have the words for sometimes. And so I'd like someone to read something I wrote and go, "Oh yeah, I felt that way. I know what he's talking about. I just never thought of it in those terms before." So if that can happen, that's great. That really is great.
Yeah, I like that.
One thing I wanted to add was that over the years I've worked on and off, and DeAnthony might be interested in this too, with an Israeli musician, a singer-songwriter named David Broza, Broza. You can look him up. He's put a number of my poems to music, and "Time of Trains" was one of them. He turned it into a song that I think is the title of one of his albums. He did about 3 or 4 albums in the United States, but he mainly records in Israel. And he's very, very big in the Israeli-Palestinian peace movement, and he's a really interesting guy. So look him up sometime. I think you might enjoy him.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, I'm thinking, DeAnthony, I'd like you to. Can we end things with you reading a poem of yours?
Yes, sure. So I'll read a poem that I wrote for the Poetry Ourselves competition this last year.
Okay.
Called Broken Expectations. I find myself in the midst of shattered glass, puncturing the soles of my shoes, cutting the bottom of my feet. Out of the pieces of glass, I pick an unbroken piece. It's frigid to the touch, dim like a midnight sky when the stars have fallen. Written in luminous letters is the word: stereotypes. I'm sweet like my chocolate skin portrays me to be, not bitter like the taste of death. And less is what you ignorantly consider me, but we both share the same breath. I stand in the midst of shattered glass, puncturing the soles of my shoes, cutting the bottom of my feet. I live a life you have labeled poverty and for years made a mockery. What an atrocity. Evidence of a scholarly product of your animosity, because the inequality that you threw couldn't conquer me. I stand in the midst of shattered glass, puncturing the soles of my shoes, cutting the bottom of my feet. And even when you didn't lend a hand, on my own 2 legs here I stand, in a land that thought they could end this man, the descendant of the hands that built this land. Oh, and isn't it grand that in the end my feet will be stained with blood and pierced with glass, because I have crushed yet another one of your expectations.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing that. That's a very good poem and a very important poem, especially right now in our times. I think I heard you read that at the Poetry Out Loud gathering in Indianapolis earlier this semester. Is that possible?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I thought so. I remember it. It's a powerful poem. Well, guys, it's been really fun talking to you all, and I wish you luck with your writing and your lives.
Thank you.
Thank you both for joining me, and I hope we cross paths again sometime.
Yes.
I hope so too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.